You felt it, right? At the grocery store, at the gas pump, that feeling that your money just doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Well, you're not alone. In the last few years, the entire world has been grappling with one of the biggest economic stories of our time, a massive surge in inflation. So what's really going on with our money? Let's break it down.
For years, prices were pretty stable, pretty predictable. But just look at this chart. Around March 2021, something completely changed. Prices didn't just climb, they started climbing at a blistering pace, soaring way, way above that 2% target the US Federal Reserve aims for. It was a sudden, sharp economic shock that was felt in households everywhere.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about inflation, what are we really saying? It's simple. It's a general increase in prices. And that means there's a fall in the purchasing power of your money. Basically, each of your dollars just buys less stuff than it did before.
So that leads to the big question, why? Why did this happen so suddenly? What were the ingredients in this, perfect economic storm? Turns out it wasn't just one single thing, but a really powerful combination of factors, all hitting us at once.
Economists usually point to two main forces at play. First up, you've got demand-pull inflation. The classic line here is too much money chasing too few goods. Just imagine everybody suddenly got a bonus and wanted to buy a new TV, but there were only a few left in stock. What happens? Prices would shoot through the roof. Then there's the flip side, cost-push inflation. This happens when it gets more expensive for businesses to actually make things. Think about when the price of gas goes up. Suddenly it costs more to deliver everything, and so the price of your groceries goes up too.
And this slide, it captures that demand-pull side of the story perfectly. You can see right after the American Rescue Plan was passed in March 2021, there's this massive spike in consumer spending. People had more money in their pockets, and they were ready to buy. That surge in spending was basically like pouring gasoline on the inflationary fire.
But here's the thing. At the exact same time, the world was struggling to make and ship goods. Global supply chains, which were built for just-in-time efficiency, turned out to be incredibly fragile. They just snapped under the pressure, creating these huge bottlenecks. Then, the war in Ukraine caused a surge in global prices for grain and energy. That's a textbook example of that cost-push pressure. The result of all this? By July 2022, the price of groceries had shot up a staggering 16%.
So you've got this overheating economy. Prices are spiraling out of control. The central bank faced a critical question. How in the world do you stop a runaway train?
Well, at first, the Federal Reserve's main priority was just supporting the economy through the pandemic. You can see it right here. They kept their main interest rate, which is basically the rate banks charge each other for overnight loans, pinned down near zero. The whole goal was to keep money cheap to encourage people and businesses to borrow and spend.
But that exact same cheap money was now supercharging inflation. A major policy shift was needed, and it was needed fast.
And this is what they did. The Fed slammed on the economic brakes by aggressively, and I mean aggressively, raising interest rates. Just look at that vertical climb. The logic is simple, really. By making it more expensive to borrow money for a car or a house or for a business to expand, you cool down spending across the board. The hope is to give the supply side of the economy a chance to catch up.
But the Fed's actions didn't happen in a vacuum, This wasn't just a US story. Inflation went global, and the way it hit different countries reveals some really deep inequalities in the world's economic system. This chart shows just how differently economies react to a big shock. On the left, you see high-income countries. Yeah, prices go up, but they tend to stabilize and come back down relatively quickly. Now look to the right, which shows middle-income countries. The impact is so much deeper, it's way more severe, and that economic pain lasts for a lot longer.
So why the huge difference? Well, it really comes down to their economic structure. In emerging economies, for example, food makes up about 28% of a family's budget. That's nearly double what it is in advanced economies. This makes them incredibly vulnerable when food prices spike. They're also more exposed to swings in the US dollar's value, and their less developed supply chains just mean that any global shock is going to hit them that much harder.
And that brings us from this big global system right back down to the individual. Because behind all these charts and all these economic theories, there is a very real and often very painful human cost.
This quote just says it all. I mean, imagine you've saved your entire life for retirement. You've planned carefully for your future. And then, all of a sudden, the cost of your groceries, your medicine, your heating bill, it all just skyrockets. That is the devastating reality that inflation creates for millions of people living on a fixed income.
And the damage? It really doesn't stop there.
What does inflation do to the very rules of our economy? It sort of quietly rewrites them. It punishes savers while it rewards people who are in debt. It creates so much uncertainty that businesses just hit pause on long-term investments. It even creates what economists call menu costs, and that's the literal cost for a restaurant to have to keep reprinting its menus over and over as its prices keep changing.
So all of this leads to a final and pretty challenging thought. We've just seen how incredibly fragile supply chains can drive prices haywire. Now, with the growing threat of climate change, which promises even more disruptions to farming and global trade, we really have to ask ourselves, was this recent crisis just a one-time event? Or is it maybe a preview of the new economic reality we're all going to be living in?